The desperate signal, the unexpected transmission. Deep in the endless black of space, far beyond the outer rim of human territory, the monitoring station. Watchful eye drifted silently among the stars. Captain Elena Rodriguez sat hunched over her. Console, her dark eyes scanning the endless stream of cosmic background radiation that flowed across her screens. For 3 years, she had served as the chief communications officer at this remote outpost, listening for any sign of alien activity in the neutral zones. The work was mostly routine, cataloging natural phenomena and tracking known shipping lanes. But tonight felt different. Tonight, the cosmos seemed to whisper secrets through the static. At 0347 hours station time, everything changed. A sharp, rhythmic pulse cut through the background noise like a knife through silk. Elena's heart skipped as she watched the signal strength spike across multiple frequencies. This was no natural phenomenon. This was artificial, controlled, deliberate. This was a message. Decoding the impossible. Elena's fingers flew across her workstation as she isolated the signal and began running it through the universal translation protocols. The pattern was complex, layered with mathematical sequences that seemed almost familiar. As the computer worked to decode the transmission, Elena felt a chill run down her spine. The source signature was unmistakable. This signal originated from the Zephyrian Empire. The Zephyrians were not friends of humanity. For over 2 decades, they had maintained a cold hostility toward human expansion into their sector of the galaxy. They were an ancient race, proud and technologically superior, who viewed humans as crude newcomers unworthy of respect. Their ships were elegant and deadly, their warriors fierce and disciplined. They had made it clear on multiple occasions that humanity's presence in their region of space was merely tolerated, not welcomed. So why were they broadcasting on open channels? The translation algorithms finally cracked the linguistic barriers, and Elena watched in disbelief as the message began to unfold across her screen. The words appeared slowly, each one weighted with desperate urgency. To any vessel capable of receiving this transmission. This is Commander Theiss of the Zephyrian Defense Force. Our empire faces complete extinction. An ancient threat has awakened in the deep void. Our colonies are being consumed. Our fleets are being destroyed. We have lost contact with 12 systems in the past lunar cycle. If there is anyone listening, anyone with the capability to render assistance, we implore you to respond. The Zephyrian Empire formally requests immediate aid from any spacefaring civilization willing to help us survive. Elena stared at the message for a full minute before her training kicked in. She initiated emergency protocols, routing the transmission directly to Earth Command while simultaneously alerting her station commander. The Council Chambers, 12 hours later in the gleaming towers of Earth Command, the most powerful leaders of humanity gathered in emergency session. The message from the Zephyrians played repeatedly on the central display, its desperate tone filling the chamber with an uncomfortable tension. Admiral Marcus Chen, Supreme Commander of the Human Defense Fleet, stood at the head of the conference table. His weathered face showed no emotion as he surveyed the room full of politicians, generals, and scientists who would help decide humanity's response to this unprecedented situation. Gentlemen, ladies, we have a decision to make. Chen began, his voice carrying the authority earned through 4 decades of military service. For the first time in galactic history, the Zephyrian Empire has asked for help. The question before us is simple. Do we answer their call? Secretary of Defense Patricia Williams leaned forward, her expression skeptical. Admiral, with respect, these are the same beings who have threatened our shipping convoys, demanded tribute payments, and repeatedly insulted our diplomatic envoys. Why should we risk human lives for people who consider us inferior? General Thompson, head of strategic operations, nodded in agreement. The Zephyrians have made their feelings about humanity quite clear. This could easily be a trap designed to lure our fleets into their territory where they can be destroyed. But Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the chief science advisor, raised a dissenting voice. If their message is genuine, and I believe our analysis suggests it is, then we're talking about the extinction of an entire civilization. Whatever threat they're facing must be catastrophic if it's brought the proud Zephyrians to the point of asking for help from anyone, including us. Admiral Chen walked slowly around the table, considering each perspective. His years of experience had taught him that the most difficult decisions were often the most important ones. What do we know about this threat they mentioned? Dr. Mitchell activated her holographic display, showing a three-dimensional map of the affected region. Based on the locations mentioned in their distress signals, something is systematically destroying Zephyrian worlds from the outer rim inward. The pattern suggests a coordinated attack by a highly advanced force. Whatever this threat is, it's moving fast and showing no mercy. Which means, Admiral Chen said quietly, that if it finishes with the Zephyrians, it might not stop there. Human space is directly adjacent to their territory. The weight of decision. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. President Rebecca Hayes, who had been listening quietly from her secure connection, finally spoke. Admiral Chen, what's your recommendation? Chen looked around the room one more time before answering. Madam President, I recommend we mobilize. Our full response capability. Not just a token force, but everything we have. If we're going to do this, we do it right. The gasps around the table were audible. The full human fleet had never been deployed as a single force. It would represent the largest military mobilization in human history. That's over 3,000 vessels, General Thompson protested. Every major ship in our fleet, including our newest carriers and dreadnoughts. If this is a trap, then humanity goes down fighting, Chen interrupted. But if it's not a trap, if this threat is real, then half measures won't be enough. The Zephyrians didn't build their empire by being weak. If something is destroying them this easily, we'll need every advantage we can get. President Hayes was quiet for a long moment, weighing the risks against the potential consequences of inaction. Finally, she spoke with the authority of her office. Admiral Chen, you have authorization to mobilize the full fleet. God help us, all but we're going to answer their call. Fleet assembly. The next 72 hours saw the greatest military mobilization in human history. From every corner of human space, warships began converging on the staging area at Titan Station. The sight was breathtaking and terrifying in equal measure. The massive carriers Enterprise and Yorktown arrived first, their cavernous hangar bays filled with the latest generation of fighter craft. Behind them came the heavy cruisers, their hulls bristling with weapons designed to crack open enemy vessels at extreme range. The destroyers followed in neat formations, fast and deadly, perfect for screening larger ships or hunting down smaller threats. But the crown jewel of the fleet was Admiral Chen's flagship, the dreadnought Indomitable. Nearly 2 kilometers long, and armed with weapons that could shatter moons, she represented the absolute pinnacle of human military engineering. Her crew of 8,000 was handpicked from the best the fleet had to offer. As Chen stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the final ships take their positions in the massive formation, he couldn't help but feel a mixture of pride and apprehension. Never before had humanity assembled such a force. The combined firepower represented in this fleet could conquer star systems or defend entire sectors. Commander Sarah Banks, his trusted first officer, approached with the final deployment reports. Admiral, all ships report ready for departure. 3,214 vessels in total. Crew complement just over 4 million souls. Chen nodded, accepting the weight of command over so many lives. Any word from our Zephyrian friends? Their distress signals have become increasingly urgent, sir. They've lost 2 more systems since we began our mobilization. Whatever they're facing is accelerating its attacks. The journey into the unknown. The hyperspace jump to Zephyrian territory would take the fleet through some of the most dangerous regions of space. Stellar phenomena, gravitational anomalies, and uncharted systems all posed potential hazards. But the greatest danger was the unknown nature of their destination. As the fleet prepared for the jump, Admiral Chen opened a communication channel to address all ships simultaneously. His image appeared on screens throughout the massive formation, from the bridge of the largest dreadnought to the cramped quarters of the smallest scout ship. Officers and crew of the human defense fleet, he began. his voice carrying across the void to millions of listeners. Today we embark on a mission unlike any in our history. We go not as conquerors, but as protectors. We answer a call for help from those who have been our enemies because it is the right thing to do. He paused, letting his words sink in across the fleet. The Zephyrians expect nothing from us. They see us as inferior, primitive, unworthy of their respect. But today we will show them what humanity truly represents. We will show them that our strength comes not from our weapons or our technology, but from our refusal to abandon others in their hour of need. Some of you may not return from this mission. Some of us will face dangers we cannot yet imagine, but we go forward together, as one people, one fleet, one unbreakable will. Whatever we face in Zephyrian space, we will face it as humans. We will face it with courage, with determination, and with the absolute certainty that we fight not just for ourselves, but for the principle that no civilization should face extinction alone. The hyperspace generators across the fleet began to charge, their deep hum resonating through the hulls of every ship. Space began to twist and bend as massive amounts of energy built up for the jump that would carry them across thousands of light years in mere hours. All ships prepare for hyperspace transition, Chen commanded. Destination: Zephyrian home system. May whatever gods watch over us keep us safe on this journey. The stars stretched into lines of light as 3,000 human warships disappeared into the void, carrying with them the hopes and fears of an entire species. Behind them, Earth continued its slow rotation, unaware that its children were about to face their greatest test among the distant stars. In the depths of space, the Zephyrian distress signals continued their desperate plea into the darkness, unaware that help was coming, unaware that humanity had chosen compassion over caution, heroism over hatred. The greatest rescue mission in galactic history had begun: arrival and revelation. The shocking arrival. The human fleet materialized at the edge of the Zephyrian home system like a storm breaking over a calm sea. 3,000 warships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their emergence sending ripples of gravitational distortion across local space. The sight was magnificent and terrifying, a wall of metal and energy that stretched across millions of cubic kilometers. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the tactical displays update as his sensors swept the system ahead. What they revealed made his blood run cold. The Zephyrian home system, once a jewel of galactic civilization, was a scene of utter devastation. "My God," whispered Commander Banks, staring at the readings. "Admiral, I'm detecting massive debris fields. Those aren't asteroids. Those are ship fragments, thousands of them." The sensor data painted a picture of systematic destruction. Orbital defense platforms hung twisted and lifeless in space. The great shipyards that had once produced the elegant Zephyrian vessels were nothing but expanding clouds of wreckage. And moving through it all, like predators stalking through a graveyard, were shapes that defied immediate classification. On the planet below, in the crystalline towers of the Zephyrian capital, Commander Thys stood transfixed before the massive viewing screen in the emergency command center. The human fleet filled the display, ship after ship appearing in orderly ranks. The Zephyrian officer had expected perhaps a small task force, maybe 100 ships if humanity was feeling particularly generous. He had not expected this. "High Commander," his aide stammered, "the humans, they brought their entire fleet, every major warship they possess. This is not a rescue mission. This is their full military might." Thys, a veteran of countless battles, felt his legs grow weak. The humans had not sent help. They had sent everything they had. In all his years of dismissing humanity as primitive and weak, he had never imagined they possessed such capability. The fleet before him could conquer half the galaxy if it chose to. "Open a communication channel," Thys ordered, his voice barely steady. "I must speak with their commander." First contact under fire. The communication link crackled to life, and Admiral Chen found himself face to face with a being he had only seen in intelligence briefings. Commander Thys was tall and elegant, with the pale blue skin and silver eyes characteristic of his species. But now those eyes held something Chen had never seen in a Zephyrian before. Genuine humility. "Human Admiral," Thys began, his voice carrying the weight of his people's desperation. "I am Commander Thys of what remains of the Zephyrian Defense Force. We did not expect such a response to our distress call. Your fleet is magnificent." Chen nodded respectfully. "Commander?" "Thys, I am Admiral Marcus Chen of the Human Defense Fleet. We received your distress signal and came as quickly as possible. What exactly are we facing here?" Before Thys could answer, alarms began screaming throughout both fleets. The sensor screens erupted with new contacts, massive shapes emerging from the outer system like nightmares given form. "Admiral," called out the tactical officer aboard the Indomitable. "Multiple contacts approaching from Sector 7. Configuration unknown, but they're massive. Each one is at least 5 kilometers long." The beings attacking the Zephyrian Empire finally revealed themselves. They were machines, but not like any technology either species had encountered. Their hulls were smooth and organic-looking, as if grown rather than built. They moved with a fluid grace that belied their enormous size, and they radiated an energy signature that made both human and Zephyrian sensors struggle to maintain lock. "The Devourers," Thys said quietly, his voice filled with bitter recognition. "They appeared 6 months ago from the deep void. We believe they are remnants of an ancient machine civilization, awakened after eons of slumber. They consume everything they encounter, converting matter and energy to expand their fleet." The ancient threat revealed Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the chief science officer aboard the Indomitable, had been analyzing the sensor data from the moment the enemy appeared. Her findings were disturbing beyond measure. "Admiral," she reported, her voice tight with concern, "these machines are operating on principles we barely understand. They're not just destroying ships and planets, they're literally consuming them, converting the raw materials into more of themselves. If this process continues unchecked, they could theoretically consume entire star systems." Admiral Chen studied the enemy formation approaching his fleet. 37 of the massive vessels moved in perfect coordination, their approach vector designed to cut off any retreat. They had clearly analyzed both the human and Zephyrian forces and were moving to engage with tactical sophistication. "Commander Thys," Chen said, "what have you learned about their capabilities?" The Zephyrian commander's image flickered as his ship's power system struggled under the strain of continuous combat. "They adapt quickly to our weapons. Energy weapons that work initially become ineffective after sustained use. They learn our tactics and counter them. We have lost over 200 ships trying to stop just one of their vessels." Chen nodded grimly. "Then we need to try something they haven't seen before. Something unpredictable. Human ingenuity. Unleashed. What happened next would be remembered as one of the most brilliant tactical innovations in military history. Instead of engaging the enemy in traditional formation combat, Admiral Chen did something that confused both his own officers and the approaching machines. He scattered his fleet. "All ships execute pattern Sigma 9, Chen commanded. "Break formation and engage in independent pack hunting. Do not, I repeat, do not maintain predictable attack patterns. Use every unconventional tactic in the book." The massive human fleet dissolved into hundreds of smaller groups, each one moving in seemingly random directions. To the orderly machine minds of the Devourers, this chaos was incomprehensible. They had analyzed standard fleet tactics, standard formations, standard approaches to combat. They had not prepared for complete tactical anarchy. Captain Lisa Torres, commanding the destroyer Defiant, led the first successful attack. Instead of engaging the enemy with her main weapons, she ordered her crew to launch every piece of space debris they could find at maximum velocity. The improvised projectiles accelerated to tremendous speeds, struck the lead Devourer vessel and disrupted its energy shields just long enough for her real attack. "Now," Torres shouted. "All weapons, concentrated fire on the disrupted section." The Defiant's weapons tore into the enemy vessel, followed immediately by attacks from 3 other destroyers that had been waiting in ambush. The ancient machine, caught off guard by the unconventional assault, suffered significant damage before it could adapt. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out as human creativity clashed with machine logic. Commander Sarah Kim of the E. Heavy cruiser Thunderbolt used her ship's tractor beam to hurl a disabled Zephyrian vessel into an enemy formation, disrupting their attack pattern. Captain James Rodriguez of the carrier Intrepid launched his fighters in a seemingly suicidal charge, only to have them scatter at the last moment and attack from dozens of different angles simultaneously. The Zephyrian Awakening Commander Thys watched the human fleet's performance with growing amazement. These beings, whom his people had dismissed as primitive barbarians, were demonstrating tactical brilliance that surpassed anything in Zephyrian military doctrine. "They fight like no one we have ever encountered," his tactical officer reported, his voice filled with awe. "Their methods appear chaotic, but there is an underlying intelligence to their madness. They are achieving results against the Devourers that our finest strategists could not match." Thys made a decision that would change the relationship between their species forever. All remaining Zephyrian vessels form up with the human fleet. We follow their lead in this battle. The surviving Zephyrian ships, elegant and deadly despite their battered condition, moved to integrate with the human formations. For the first time in their history, Zephyrians willingly subordinated themselves to another species' command structure. Admiral Chen welcomed them without hesitation. "Commander Thys, your ships are equipped with weapons our vessels don't have. We need that firepower integrated into our attack patterns." What followed was a masterpiece of improvised cooperation. Human tactical flexibility combined with Zephyrian precision to create something entirely new. The humans would create chaos and confusion among the enemy ranks, while the Zephyrians delivered devastating precision strikes at the moments of maximum vulnerability. The tide turns. The battle raged for hours, with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. The Devourers, despite their adaptability, found themselves constantly confused by the humans' refusal to follow predictable patterns. Just when they adapted to one tactic, the humans would switch to something completely different. But it was the arrival of reinforcements that finally tipped the balance. More Devourer vessels emerged from the deep void, their massive forms dwarfing even the largest human dreadnoughts. Admiral Chen realized that conventional tactics, no matter how creative, would not be enough to stop this threat. "All ships, prepare for Operation Wildfire," Chen commanded, his voice carrying across the entire combined fleet. Operation Wildfire was theoretical, a last resort tactic that had never been tested in actual combat. It required every ship in the fleet to coordinate their hyperspace generators to create a localized space-time distortion. The energy requirements were enormous, and the risks were catastrophic. "Admiral," Commander Banks warned, "if the calculations are wrong, we could tear apart local space-time. The entire system could be destroyed." Chen looked at the approaching enemy fleet, then at the battered planet below where millions of Zephyrians waited for salvation. "Commander, sometimes you have to risk everything to save anything." The final gambit, as the human and Zephyrian fleets positioned themselves around the approaching Devourer armada, something unprecedented happened. The ancient machines, for the first time since Awakening, transmitted a message. "Biological entities," the transmission came in perfect galactic standard. "Your resistance is futile. We are the harvest. We are the end of flesh and the beginning of perfection. Submit, and your destruction will be swift." Admiral Chen's response was broadcast across all frequencies, heard by every human, every Zephyrian, and every ancient machine in the system. "This is Admiral Marcus Chen of the Human Defense Fleet, speaking for the combined forces of two great civilizations. We have a message for you. Humanity doesn't know how to submit, and today we're teaching our new friends the same lesson." The hyperspace generators across the combined fleet began to charge, their harmonic resonance creating a low hum that seemed to vibrate through the very fabric of space. The Devourers, sensing the massive energy buildup, accelerated their attack, desperate to stop whatever the biological entities were planning. They were too late. Space itself seemed to scream as 3,000 hyperspace generators activated simultaneously. their combined output creating a localized distortion that trapped the Devourer fleet in a pocket of twisted space-time. The ancient machines, for all their technological superiority, found themselves caught in a prison of their own making, as their adaptive systems struggled to comprehend what was happening. "Now!" Chen commanded. "All ships, full power to weapons, everything we have." The combined fleet unleashed a devastating barrage into the trapped enemy formation. Human weapons designed for brutal efficiency combined with Zephyrian technology, optimized for elegant precision. The Devourers, unable to maneuver within the space-time distortion, were systematically destroyed. When the last enemy vessel fell silent, drifting as lifeless metal through the void, a profound quiet settled over the battlefield. The greatest threat the galaxy had known in millennia had been stopped by the cooperation of two species who had considered each other enemies just days before. A new understanding in the aftermath of victory, as rescue crews worked to save survivors and repair damaged vessels, Admiral Chen received a personal communication from Commander Thys. The Zephyrian's image appeared on his screen, but this time, the alien's bearing was different. Gone was the cold arrogance that had characterized their previous interactions. In its place was genuine respect. "Admiral Chen," Thys began, "my people owe you a debt that can never be repaid. You came when we called, bringing not just assistance but salvation itself. We have been mistaken about humanity." Chen smiled wearily. "Commander, we all make mistakes. The important thing is that we learn from them. Your people fought brilliantly today. This victory belongs to both our species." "There is something you must know," Thys continued. "The Devourers transmitted a signal before their destruction. They have awakened others of their kind throughout the galaxy. This battle was just the beginning." Admiral Chen nodded slowly. The implications were staggering, but they also represented an opportunity. Then we'll face them together, humanity and the Zephyrian Empire, as allies. As the two fleets began the long process of recovery and rebuilding, something new was born among the stars. A partnership forged in the crucible of desperate battle, an alliance that would reshape the political landscape of the galaxy. The Zephyrians had learned that humanity's strength came not from their weapons or their numbers, but from their absolute refusal to abandon others in need. And humanity had gained not just an ally, but the respect of one of the galaxy's most ancient and powerful civilizations. The first distress call had been answered, but as Admiral Chen looked out at the stars, he knew that humanity's greatest adventures were just beginning.